Good evening, beautiful people of planet Earth and all other interdimensional entities across time, space, dimensions. Those entities of love, light, truth, protecting our planet Earth. Well, I know you're out there somewhere, looking after us. It's a nice fantasy, isn't it? But we've got to have our fantasies. And sometimes, if you see UAP or you see other strange anomalies, it's not quite such a fantasy and starts to become very, very real. But anyway, you can tell I've just come off watching a YouTube video. What was the title? I'm actually not quite finished it. I'm 2/3 of the way through. Danny Jones, Underwater Area 51. Best evidence aliens live deep under our oceans. Richard Dolan, who's a UAP researcher who I happen to really like. So it's interesting. It's pause for thought. I've never seen a USO, but I have seen UFOs when I was younger, and actually not that long ago, here at Kookaroo, here where Jared used to live. We saw a few on a few occasions actually, and we saw some many years ago when I was a younger woman at Alexandra Hills. Ironically, while we were sitting in the driveway for Hungry Jack's, staring over into the horizon, that was a strange experience. My children were with us too, and we all saw it, but of course nobody believed us. But here's the weird thing about that. The drive-through had quite a few other cars in it, and by the gods, if we all saw it in my vehicle, they would have seen it too, because we were all facing in the same general direction. So it does make you wonder why no one else speaks out and admits to seeing these things. I guess afraid of being, deemed crazy or a fantasist or a liar, but no, these things are very real, and they're becoming more and more prevalent in our modern contemporary times. They've always been seen, but they're becoming witnessed by lots more people than ever before. It's a bit astonishing. Anyway, I thought I would carry on with finishing off this book, Man, Myth and Magic. This is not a very long chapter, so I don't perceive this will be a very long video. But I've worked my way through the entire book, so it'll be nice to tie up loose ends and finish the book. So I thought I would continue with that. And the title today is Possession and Trance. And we have a 19th century French engraving of a woman possessed by a demon. I'll just say allegedly because we went there and we don't really know, but she looks pretty under some kind of torment. She's literally torn her dress off her chest and she's clawing at her left breast and tearing with her right arm. What is her right arm? No, she's clawing at her right breast and tearing away with her left arm. And poking her tongue out, her eyes have rolled back in her head. She's looking very gaunt and emaciated, which often happens with demonic possession because the demons don't let you practice proper self-care like washing and eating properly, and you're just unable to function in ordinary mortal existence. It's I think it comes and goes in waves from time to time where you seem normal for brief periods of time and then you sink back into some kind of diabolical state of being, mind, body and spirit. Eventually it takes over the whole person. Invariably they die, usually from starvation actually, or some other kind of self-harming that starts being brought into play as well. You can see the self-harming there, clawing at herself. It's a terrible, terrible situation. Used to be a rare situation, but not so rare now in these interesting times we find ourselves in. I'd be interested to know if anyone has statistics on whether it has increased since the COVIDian interference in our body autonomies and DNA. Just out of academic curiosity, I wonder how I can find that out. If anyone's, researched it or kept records of it, surely the medical fraternity would know if there's been an increase in the demonic since we were all invaded basically by medical protocol that was not good for any of us, including doctors and scientists, all human beings. I will never understand how they all complied with that and literally went along. It will never, if I lived 1,000,000 trillion years, will I understand how our own medical experts fell into line with that. It just constantly blows my mind. So there is that. But I have seen a lot of changes in people I'm acquainted with or people I was friends with. Some, ironically, are doing actually slightly better in recent months. And those some ones, I won't name them, but they are the ones that have probably worked hard because they were made so ill with adverse reactions with that thing that we were coerced to put into our arms, that those people that were really struck down with really quite severe adverse reactions, that have done the work to have a healthier diet, take nattokinase and try and as best as they possibly can drive that spike protein out of their system, out of their body, mind and spirit, which I don't believe we can actually completely get it out of us because it self-replicates. But those that have put the work in to clean their houses, their internal houses, and get themselves, in a more healthier position, I can tell who they are. I could actually name them, but I won't because of privacy issues. I can't prove that they've done the work, but I can see they're looking way healthier than the rest and kind of a little bit proud of themselves too, because they know they've had a very close shave with death and they've worked hard to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and have a change of attitude towards their own health. And they know, I can tell by the way they look at me that they know that I was right to speak out against it and that I actually had all their backs. At the same time, I have many enemies who are proponents of that pharmaceutical genocide, for want of a better word, because they all got some kickback or benefited from it financially in some way. So I have those types of people, are my enemies now, but I don't care because truth remains the truth, and I can see the changes, and I can see who's putting in the work to heal themselves courageously. And I can also see that, even my former GP who I saw some months ago, that once bowed to me in admiration for holding my line, has been turned. Became quite vicious, and so Currently I don't have a general practitioner because I don't trust any of them. But I had a lovely telehealth appointment with my urologist today. He's very proud of me because I'm fighting every day in my own body, mind and spirit with my bladder issues that have been like that long before the COVID epoch. I got fell prey to Big Pharma in 2007. Literally fell prey because it wasn't explained what that interference on my bladder, what it would actually do to me in the long term. So I am very supported by my wonderful urologist and my wonderful psychiatrist. So there are wonderful, good, kind doctors and scientists out there who are working with me to the best of their abilities, given that I refuse medications and I'm still holding out on the Botox therapy because I'm still nervous about that. And so I'm waiting on that to see if my bladder should devolve into some more very untenable state, then I will have to use that option. But at the moment, I was happy to report to my doctor, my urologist, that I'm moderately better, only getting up 1 or 2 times a night. So you see, a lot of it's got to do with eating well and getting enough sleep and just being determined to stay alive. Mind over matter sometimes. And anyway, so I just wanted to share that. It's, quite intimate sharing these issues about bladders and health, but most people across the world have been affected one way or the other, various organs of their bodies. So it's important that we speak openly with each other as a species and take notes of who's been struck down to varying degrees and who's improving to varying degrees, and why they're improving and what the actual key component is. It's interesting. It's interesting to know these things. Right, but anyway, I've had a very busy day. I've spent another whole day, this time dusting. By dusting I mean washing with detergent all the build-up of dust and mould out of my bedroom. It was an epic task. I started at about 10 and finished at about 4, so that's at 6 hours. It's a lot, people of Earth, a lot. But then I've got all, necklaces that hang off my 4-poster bed, so I had to individually wash them all down. And then I found mould in my little timber shoe cabinet, so she threw out 3 pairs of shoes. I threw out a beautiful pair of patent leather stilettos that were that high that I used to wear to the casino, 10 years ago or so. I can't wear stilettos anymore. So I threw them out because they were old and had been repaired multiple times, and I thought, it's time to just let them go. And then I found another pair of sandals, summer sandals that I wore quite often, covered in mould, so they got thrown out, but they were well worn and kind of starting to break apart in places. And I threw out a pair of Havana jandals or thongs or flip-flops, whatever you call them in your country, wherever you're receiving this message from, and they were well worn. So I had a little bit of a declutter of shoes and took everything out and washed everything and then put it back, but I don't know what I'm going to do about the mould situation. There shouldn't be mould in there. I might need to buy one of those, what do you call them, dehumidifying things to whack in there somehow. But anywho, and then it was, I washed down both blinds on my bedroom. That was a big job too. And it just went on, and there was no end in sight. But, I was happy today. My cleaning lady, Rati, was here, and she said, "You're happy today, and you're dusting." And I went, I hate dusting. I never do dusting, but it's so bad, Rati, I've got to do it. She was proud of me too, Oh, and a new lawnmower man came, and he was a lovely man from Vietnam, did a wonderful job. So I was just so happy and relieved to have the house and garden put back into pristine order, all nice and cleaned up and looking lovely again. And I've still got the kitchen, dining area and the spare room to wash all the dust down. I'll do that tomorrow. I can't possibly do any more. I'm tired now. But yeah, it takes me days to wash everything down, and then it gets dusty again, so it drives me mad. Well, anyway, I've segued from reading about possession and trance. But there's a reason for that in a way, because when I'm cleaning or doing things repetitively, it happens when I'm dancing for hours and hours too. I myself do get in a kind of an altered state or a trance-like state, which can be quite interesting at times, the messages I might receive or the downloads I might receive, sometimes consciously or unconsciously. And it certainly enhances my creativity, I've found, when I go dancing or get myself into that kind of ecstatic type trance type state. But anyway, right. Possession and trance. The medium in trance, the person possessed by spirit, the speaker in tongues, the mystic in ecstasy, the art lover entranced. Are they in touch with a reality beyond the normal world? A psychiatrist's view of a complicated human mechanism. States of trance and so-called possession form the core of many experiences which seem spiritual, mysterious, and supernatural. All through history, men have thought that in trance, contact could be made with an order of reality lying behind the everyday world. An order of reality with which we are not in touch in our everyday condition of mind and body. A dictionary definition of the word trance is a morbid sleep differing from natural repose in duration, in profound sensibility, etc., the concomitant or symptom of diseases of the nervous system, particularly hysteria, catalepsy. Don't think I've ever had a trance where I've gone into a full-blown cataleptic state, thank the goddess, because that would be quite frightening, I would think, for other people to witness. But I have seen it in mediumship and spiritualist churches where, their eyes kind of roll back in their head and you can see they've kind of been taken over by another entity. Although some of them are such supreme charlatans, they're just very good bloody actors, people have heard. It's sometimes hard to discern who's, genuine and who's just acting. This definition points us straight to the connection between the morbid sleep of trance, in which contact with supernatural truth is thought to be made, and disorders of the human mental and physical system. In many trance states, the subject is mentally absorbed, apparently unaware of the external world around him, perhaps in a condition of exaltation or ecstasy, but he may continue to talk and behave in ways which make sense, though afterwards he cannot remember what he said and did. It is this combination of a frightening and abnormal state of mind with comprehensible speech and behaviour that has impressed men with the notion that someone in trance is the mouthpiece of the gods. The same thing can happen to someone who is kicked on the head while playing football, or who suffers from loss of memory after a violent shock. Some drugs, hashish, LSD, mescaline and the like, induce a trance state or ecstatic state, not necessarily involving loss of memory. Trance states can also occur as a result of tumours of the brain or other brain injuries. But there are also trances which are not induced by a sudden blow or shock. And although it is perfectly possible to fake a trance, as I said earlier, and people have done so, there is no doubt that genuine trance states of this sort do occur. They occur in the ecstasies of mystics or magicians, when the mind is concentrated on a powerful idea or image of a god perhaps, and the link between the mind and the normal world seems to snap. They occur in clairvoyants and fortune tellers, and quite frequently in mediums. Before we continue, I'll just share the photographs of various people in various trance states. All over the world it is believed that people in trances are controlled by gods and spirits. Number 1, woman being sent during a church ceremony in Watts, Los Angeles. Fundamentalist services often produce trance and semi-trance states among the congregation. She does indeed look rather ecstatic. But being a fundamentalist church, she's probably been singing and dancing as part of the gospel singing and the prayer for quite some time, and it will put you into that state. Ask me how I know. I've never been in a Christian fundamentalist church of that kind, but I've entered various states, even in my Jewish temple, which isn't designed for that, but after hours and hours of concentrating and praying and, picking up energies from other congregants, and, I've been known to go into that state myself without the ecstatic dancing and the euphoric, over ebullient self-expression. Actually, my rabbi was kind of a bit frightened of me, because when I did go into a mild trance once and had a vision of his near future and told him about it, he was very perturbed and frightened of me after that. It's not like I could control it. The only thing, I was young then, and I didn't think that perhaps I shouldn't tell him, because I thought it was important information. It was given to me for a reason, therefore he needed to be informed of it. But it didn't make me any more of a friend after that. Kind of ended our friendship. And it was well meant and well intended. And when it came true, it was his wife that actually told me that it had come true, looking at me a bit astonished, and I just nodded. Said I knew I was seeing a future event and that it was going to happen, but I didn't know the details. I only could see the situation, the people around him. And anyway, it probably won't be the first or the last time I lose friends, because I just happen to be, on rare occasions, not all the time, but happen to be clairvoyant. It's not something I practice frequently. I'm not a frequent flyer, but when it happens, even I sit up and take notice, because it's a rare event even in my own life experiences. But I mean, with practice it might come to me more frequently. But look, the way I'm despised and spurned and hated just for my shamanistic capabilities, it's hardly worth going into the more trance-like clairvoyant states, because it just frightens people. They don't know how to handle it. And when you're in that state, you actually need support and backup, and people who understand what's actually happening to you and can actually take the messages that you're being given seriously and write them down and keep a logbook of it, and actually, well, I'm not an Edgar Casey, don't get me wrong, but in Edgar Casey's situation, he had people that recorded his visions and because he was the sleeping prophet, and would record it and take it all very seriously, and even log how many times he was accurate and how many times things did not quite make sense but made sense down the chat later, and so on and so forth. There's a whole kind of science to it, an art to it, and you need support, not derision and mockery and othering and being scorned and spurned and looked down upon like you're some kind of featured animal, when all you're doing is opening up to the other dimensions quite organically and naturally, without drugs or other interferences. And there's no harm and no foul in it, really. But you get ignorant people everywhere. There's not much you can do about that, unfortunately. Anyway, number 2 is an African dancer in trance. African medicine men frequently put a patient into trance to expel the spirit which has possessed him. So here he is, looking very, very ecstatic and euphoric also. Number 3, priest making the first gesture in the voodoo greeting ritual. Very handsome looking priest, I might add. But this was in 1970, so who knows when that photo was taken. It's got very intelligent eyes and it's very serene and somehow powerful and at one with the gods, as one should be if one knows how to do these things correctly. 4. Member of a fundamentalist sect in Kentucky, believing herself possessed by the Holy Ghost. Must be this one. There's no numbers on it, so they just assume that you know which one. I'm assuming since it follows the voodoo priest that they mean this lady here. 5. Rhythmic music and dancing can induce trance and semi-trance states. A scene from a concert by the Rolling Stones. And 6. Lying in a state of collapse, a West Indian possessed during a voodoo ceremony. Can't quite make him out. Let's try and zoom in a bit. Here he is. Right, I continue reading. Speaking in tongues. There is also the phenomenon called possession, in which a god or spirit, which may be good or evil, is thought to have taken control of the person in trance, to speak through his mouth and act through his limbs. The person afterwards remembering nothing of what happened during the trance. The words and actions of someone possessed by a god or a spirit naturally carry considerable weight with an audience, which believes them to be the words and actions of the god or spirit itself. All over the world, and at all times, including the present day, trances have served to inculcate or fortify a variety of beliefs. In Tibet, before the coming of the communists, important decisions of policy were generally taken by the Dalai Lama and his advisors, only after they had consulted the state oracle. The oracle was a young man who went into a trance and spoke strange words, which the priests interpreted. Hundreds of years before, the oracle of the temple of Apollo at Delphi, potato, tomato, it's probably Delphi though, was a woman who went into trance. Through her mouth, it was believed, the god himself answered the questions put to him. Although the answers were famous for being riddling, obscure, and frequently misleading, many important decisions were made by Greek politicians only after consulting the oracle and in an attempt to follow its advice. Some of the early Christians, including St. Paul, experienced ecstatic trance states, and the church festival of Pentecost, Whitsun, still commemorates the descent of the Holy Ghost to the apostles. There was the sound of a great rushing wind. They saw what appeared to be cloven tongues of fire, and they began to speak in foreign languages which they had never learned. This speaking in tongues is a valued experience today among some groups of Christians who believe that it is a sign of contact with God. Trance states are seen very commonly in Africa. During initiation ceremonies at puberty, States of trance are induced in boys and girls who experience a collapse or little death after being exposed to rhythmic drumming, exhausting dancing, the pain of circumcision, and the display to them of masks of the supposed tribal spirits. These spirits may talk to them through the mouths of witch doctors who are themselves in states of trance and who wear the grotesque and frightening masks of the spirits they represent. Real healing value. It is an old belief still prevalent in some parts of the world that illness is caused by possession. Either the disease is itself an evil spirit which has seized the unfortunate patient in its grip, or it has been brought by an evil being which has taken hold of him. To cure him, the evil spirit must be cast out. The patient is often put into a trance, again through rhythmic dancing and singing, and the healer may also go into trance. Unknown to the patient, the evil spirit talks through his mouth, telling the medicine man why it has possessed the patient, perhaps because of some moral lapse on his part, or as the result of a spell which an enemy has put on him. The medicine man then tries to expel the spirit from the patient, and if he is successful, the patient emerges from his trance mentally or physically healed. Cures of this type do work in practice. From a psychiatrist's point of view, what happens is that in trance the patient is able to confess his sins and pour out his anxieties and problems in the same way as a patient on a Western psychotherapist's couch, though, because he is in trance, the African patient is not conscious of what he is saying and does not remember it afterwards. This process has real healing value for a variety of reasons, one of which is the patient's responding to suggestion and fully believing that the spirit which possessed him has been driven out. Most of us in the West do not experience full-scale trance or possession at first hand, but we sometimes come close to it. Many people who went to hear Hitler speak, the effects of his hypnotic ranting, reinforced by music, ceremonial, the response of a great crowd, were carried out of themselves into an uncritical state of mind in which they felt that he was almost a divine being. It's called mesmerism. It's a form of hypnosis. Enthusiastic listeners to the Beatles have been known to go into states akin to trance, with or without temporary loss of consciousness, when the music seems to take on a richness of significance of which the listener is powerfully aware, though he cannot describe it in words. Lovers of classical music are not immune from the same effect. The state which we commonly call being entranced held in the grip of an experience of immeasurable beauty, immeasurable meaning, induced by works of art or by splendours of landscape, is the nearest approach to the true trance state which most of us ever make. Before I continue, I will show you the photos on these 2 pages. Some of them are quite evocative. Let me just put it delicately. Left. Frenzies and trances were also part of the religious experience of the ancient Greeks. Amphora of a circa 500 BC, showing 2 Maenads, worshippers of Dionysus, in ecstasy, dancing to the music of a satyr. And he is indeed a satyr. He's got a very erect penis, which is a definition of a satyr, constantly going around with an erection. Ha ha! I still laugh to this day how Emmanuel Meshes, of not so blessed memory in my opinion, because he was a complete creep to me, actually referred to his best friend David Davidson, my former lover, as a satyr, for which I burst out into quite almost trance-like laughter, because it was the truest description of the man that anyone could have ever provided him with. But just shows you, male friends can be treacherous to each other too, can they not? But anyway, I just laughed, took it in good stead. Right. At a service of a snake-handling sect in Tennessee, the worshippers often go into ecstatic states in which they believe that the intensity of their faith will keep them from harm. I'll just show you that first before I show you the photographs below. And below, to the rhythmic sound of drums, a voodoo dancer works herself into a state of sexual frenzy, which is an aspect of ceremonies leading to states of possession. So we'll just go from left to right. Here she's holding a white rooster, I believe, I'm not sure, or a chicken of some kind. She's dancing with the chicken, and it's not clear, but it would appear that by the end of it she's holding the bird upside down by its feet. So at some point during that dance she's killed it. But in this the first 3 photographs, I'm wrong, she wasn't holding a chicken, she's holding what looks like a human skull. So that's kind of fascinating too. But anyway. I continue reading. The validity of trance. There will always be arguments about trance. Some people believe that the medium in trance, the person possessed by spirit, they already wrote that earlier, didn't they? Oh, well, we'll carry on. They're repeating themselves. The speaker in tongues, the mystic in ecstasy, the art lover in trance. I do find going to the art gallery almost a spiritual experience because I do enter in a kind of an altered state too, looking at all the fabulous art. May be truly in touch with a reality beyond the normal world. Others believe that trance is a splitting of the field of consciousness and that the subject is not in touch with any mysterious or greater reality, but is expressing beliefs, ideas, hopes or fears which he himself unconsciously holds, or which are part of the general currency of his society. The person in trance generally retains some vague awareness of his surroundings. He rarely falls and hurts himself, and he generally talks of things which he knows about. He may in fact exhibit a sharper perception and awareness of what is going on around him than in his normal conscious state, so that in trance he gives the impression of having an enhanced power to read other men's minds, to analyse their present actions and prophesy their future ones. Strange tongues are spoken in trance, but there is no completely proven instance of a language being spoken in trance by someone who was totally unacquainted with it before. Subconscious, forgotten memories can rise to the surface in trance. Facts once known and languages once learned can be brought back by an individual who has little or no recollection of them in his normal state. I do not myself believe that in states of trance gods ever speak to men. Trance is usually a state of self-hypnosis, through which all sorts of dubious beliefs can be implanted and maintained. Fortunes are not made because the subject of a trance is able to predict something readily checkable and profitable, the movements of prices on the stock exchange or the winners of horse races. But trance states have been used through the ages and will continue to be used to prop up belief in a great variety of gods, spirits, ghosts, and the rest. Those who have experienced trance themselves can rarely be convinced that something supernatural has not happened to them, because auto-suggestibility tends to become so greatly enhanced in the trance state. It's a bit boring, isn't he? It's a bit of a dry motherfucker. I can beg to differ on all of his points right there, but we'll just let him have it because he's a psychiatrist. But I know other psychiatrists that would agree with me that this guy's just he's just a materialist, rationalist, and is allowing no leeway at all for the magical or the supernatural, probably because deep down he fears it. So he's projecting. Do you like how I did that? It was pretty well done, wasn't it? I know. But honestly, I have no time for people who are closed-minded and ignorant. He can't be completely closed-minded and ignorant, no, or he wouldn't have contributed this article to a book on man, myth and magic. So, but it just seemed a bit uncompromising and negating. Just say. We shall know much more about trance when we know better how the human brain really works. Readers of this encyclopedia will find states of trance mentioned in connection with gods, demons, ghosts, telepathy, witches, spirit possessions, and supernatural powers of all sorts. The reader is best left to his own final judgment as to whether man is deceived or elevated to high realms of the spirit by this fascinating but complicated mechanism of the human mind. William Sargent. Well, Dr. Sargent, it is true. Men and women, and no doubt children that go into trance states do, can indeed be equally deceived or elevated according to the whims of the communicating spirit or God, although very rare to have actual gods possess you and communicate through to you. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare. Probably happens a fair bit in voodoo though, because the followers of voodoo are more open to the various gods and have constant working relationships with them, communication and communing with them. It's a lifestyle and way of life and a constant daily practice. So that probably does happen, that they would communicate often with gods, but the majority of other types of mediums or clairvoyants would very rarely commune with gods and or angels or demons for that matter, usually dealing with astral type entities or sometimes various aspects of their own subconscious. So it just depends. But I do my own trance drumming here on occasion, and I do my own recording of it, and a lot of it I keep the notes and I have a chuckle to myself because I know how much of it is just me wishing and hoping for certain outcomes, so I've projected into the trance my own desires. But every now and then I'll get quite astonishing messages or missives or communications that I know were not dredged up from my subconscious and not mine, and that I could not possibly have known. And that's why I keep doing it, because hoping for the very rare and precious communications that are indeed from some elevated or higher or wiser, more knowledgeable source, capital S. So, but you have to be again cautious doing that on your own without any supervision or anyone to guide you through that process, because it involves opening circle, protection prayers and closing circle, and because you're alone you're vulnerable to psychic attack from negative energies, not necessarily negative energies of disembodied people, but sometimes you're picking up negative energies from people who are constantly ruminating about you and sending kind of an egregore of hatred towards you, and you can pick that up too, have attachments with living people, and that can be very confusing because you don't know what's real. After a while you have to kind of carefully pass it out and work out who's behind that. You usually have a fairly good idea, but not necessarily, because some living people who have evil intentions, but towards you are quite clever at masking it, hiding it, or hiding behind other people who are relatively innocent or naive. So you don't always know what you're dealing with, is what I'm saying. So if you're going to do any kind of auto-hypnosis type spiritual work, whether it's Ouija board, automatic writing, getting yourself into a trance via trance drumming, or ecstatic dancing, it really is better to have a witness or someone working with you to make sure that if things go all right, they can bring you back out of that trance safely and back into your normal state of consciousness, and be able to analyse if something really evil is attached to it, because you can't tell if you're working alone. So you need a reasonable amount of experience, is what I'm saying, to do that kind of psychic work alone. Right. The next entry in this book is called Asafoetida. Evil-smelling gum made by drying the juice of the plant Ferula asafoetida and used as a condiment. It is recommended in a magical textbook called the Lemegeton, for calling up a demon, as its stench is suitable to the nature of demons, which stink of hell. And the next entry is called asceticism. The practice of abstinence and austerity, based on the belief that the desires of the flesh are a spiritual hindrance and intended to subdue the body or to make it holy. See self-denial. So here's little pictures attached. There's a when it focuses some kind of blurb for a company in Bombay that is selling compounded asafoetida Cobra brand, and the ascetic monk sitting there looking rather uncomfortable. The next entry is ash. Various Greek myths link the birth of mankind with a universal ash tree. The poet Hesiod's fable of Zeus creating a race of brazen men from ashes accounts for the reference in Homer, when Penelope says to Ulysses, "Tell me thy family from whence thou art, for thou art not sprung from the olden tree." Nordic myths also suggest I'll just quickly reply to that. Sorry. Nordic myths also suggest that man was created from the wood of the ash by the god Odin, and the word itself derives from the Norse aska, meaning man. In the Edda, a collection of old myths and legends, the ash becomes the world tree, Yggdrasil. Its branches overspread the world and reached the heavens, while its roots penetrated the abyss known as hell, from which our modern word hell is derived. Halfway up the trunk was Midgard, the disc-shaped earth surrounded by ocean, with the serpent of eternity and a final mountain boundary on its outer rim. Asgard, the mountain of the gods at the base of Valhalla, reared up around the trunk. The ash also figures in a creation myth of the Algonquin Indians of North America, in which the creator god shot an arrow into an ash tree and the first humans emerged from the wound. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting that they all have the ash tree in common too. The association of the ash and snakes is widespread. In the 1st century AD, Pliny wrote on ash's magical efficacy against snakes, how a snake would rather perish in a fire than crawl over an ash twig, and that they even avoid the shade cast by an ash tree. That belief lasted for centuries in backwoods American lore and elsewhere. To carry an ash twig or wear ash leaves in your hat would protect you against being bitten by snakes. If you were, drinking ash sap would cure the bite. Witches were also repelled by the ash, a bunch of ash keys being considered particularly useful against them. Ash sap was fed to newborn babies to protect them from evil spirits, and a baby's first bath should be before a fire of ash wood. Never heard of that before. A bunch of ash leaves would guard a bed and its occupant. A house within an ash grove was secure from supernatural influences. The Irish burnt ash to keep the devil away, and it was the original Yule log, the burning faggot from which the old year's sacred flame was transmitted to the new. Ash is in fact a splendid wood for fires, burning even if green. Must have a lot of oils in it, like natural oils. There are many minor bits of magic connected with this tree. It could be employed to cure warts by pressing a pin into the wart and then into the tree, saying, ash tree, pray buy these warts off me. Children could be cured of rupture by passing them naked through a cleft made in an ash tree and held open by oaken wedges, which was then closed and bandaged. If the tree's wound healed satisfactorily, the rupture would do likewise. Gilbert White describes the rite and the natural history of Selborne, where he also notes the even odder custom of the shrew ash. Shrews were believed to cause cramp and lameness if they ran over cattle. If a live shrew was sealed into a hole bored in an ash, the cattle could be cured by stroking them with a branch from this tree. Ash could, in any case, not injure animals, and was one of the trees recommended for making shepherd's crooks. The picture I'm going to show you now, which is on this page, is Yggdrasil. The world tree in Nordic myth was an ash tree. Its roots reached to hell, and its uppermost branches touched heaven. It was also believed that the disc-shaped earth was situated halfway up the trunk. So here's the engraving here. Right, the next entry is called Ashanti. Good morning to you, God. Good morning. The supreme being of the Ashanti is everywhere and sees everything. If you have something to say to him, you say it to the wind. The Ashanti people live in Ghana in West Africa. Religious rites and ceremonies are important in traditional Ashanti society because it is believed that men interact not only with each other but also with their ancestors and with supernatural beings and spirits which inhabit the universe. This interaction is possible because man himself is made of material and non-material elements. He has a body formed out of the blood of his mother, a spirit derived partly from his father, and a soul given to him by the Supreme Being. To the Ashanti, therefore, man's well-being depends on both physical and spiritual factors. When a person is sick, the cause of his illness may be spiritual as well as physical. When his affairs do not go right, he may have been thwarted not only by his fellow men, but by supernatural forces and spirits invoked by evil men to their aid, or by spirits and beings which he has offended. In a society which holds this view, religion cannot but dominate its way of life. Man must worship and pray to the supernatural beings and spirits on whom he depends for his, or we should say, her, well-being. Religion is one of the means by which he or her lives his life, his or her, it's starting to grind my gears, the misogyny, but never mind, by which he lives his life on this earth, and recourse to methods of controlling supernatural forces and spirits for his own benefit becomes a matter of practical necessity. Indeed. Certainly aids one a lot to have an open mind and a constant communication with the gods, the angels, the spirits, the ancestors that love us, and at times the good folk as well, depending on who's making themselves known to you, who comes through on occasion. Although the Ashanti believe in the hereafter, they are more concerned with the here and now. They do not hold the view that the fruits of man's toils and labours are reaped only after death. You do not do good in order to reap the benefits after death, but in order to live a full life on earth. Amen to that, Ashantis everywhere. If a person does not fare well, he must do something about it. If he still does not succeed, he can only hope to have his destiny changed in the other world before he returns to be born anew, if he so wishes. The hereafter only provides the consolation of continuity, of knowing that you can join your kinsman after death, or that you can hope for a better life to be relived on earth. The dependable God. To the Ashanti, the universe is the work of a creator, Odomankoma. It is he who created the heaven and earth, men and all creatures of the earth, trees and rivers. As they say on their drums, things that owe their origin to the Creator must be clearly distinguished from the works of man who draws on nature for his own benefit. The things of nature are from long ago. The path has crossed the river has crossed the path. Which is the elder? We made the path and found the river. The river is from long ago, from the Creator of the universe. When Odomankoma, the Creator, created the world, he also created life and death. According to an Ashanti myth, death became so powerful that he was able to kill the Creator himself. But when the Creator died, the universe continued to be controlled by a supreme being called Nyame. At first, the supreme being lived very close to earth and was within easy reach of man, but he was obliged to move far out into the heavens because women hit the earth continually as they pounded grain in mortars. Always blaming it on the women. I guess he didn't like the noise that we made while we were preparing food, am I right? Oh. From his abode on high, Nyame is able to see everything, for he sees even with his eyes turned away. He seems to be everywhere, for the Ashanti say, if you have something to say to the Supreme Being, say it to the wind. He is the giver of rain and sunshine who controls the seasons. He offers protection to those who need it, protection and help to those who need it. Well, in that case, to you, Nyame. As summarized in Ashanti proverbs, it is the Supreme Being that brushes off flies from the tailless animal. It is the Supreme Being that pounds food for the one who has lost his arm. The Supreme Being is the source of morality. He does not like men to cheat one another. Man's destiny is in his hands. If the Supreme Being does not want you to die and a human being tries to kill you, you will not die. I can attest to that one 3 times, people have heard, at the very least. There's been more events than that, but those were the 3 main, probably most obvious and overt attempts to kill me. And here I am, 25 years later, or in the case of the first strangulation. No, it is 95 to 2025, 30 years later. Anyway, the gods decreed that I live to this age, this season of joy, in this strange, brave new world we find ourselves in. Just saying. Anyway, men can depend on him, for he is someone on whom one leans and does not fall. And so the drummer exhorts his listeners. The dependable God bids us all abide by his injunctions. Then shall we get whatever we want, be it white or red. Is it God, creator of it is God, creator of the firmament. Good morning to you, God. Good morning. I am learning. Let me succeed. I like that. It shows humility and grace and trust that the God will give you all the knowledge that you need, which we all know is already inside you. It's just waiting to be brought to your consciousness and the knowledge to blossom, unfurl like a red carpet into your distant future. It is what it is, people of Earth. It is not only human beings who owe their lives to the Creator. The Ashanti believe that the supernatural beings which inhabit the universe also owe their existence and power to him. Of these beings, those who wield the greatest power are the gods, Abosom, who may be identified with particular features of nature. They include river gods, tree gods, and mountain gods, as well as gods without any clearly defined habitat. All of them rank below the Supreme Being and are sometimes described as his children. However, within the limits of the powers given to them, they act independently. Before we continue, I just want to show you the picture of the Ashanti people. At the birth of their nation, the Ashanti believed that a golden stool descended from the heavens. The stool has always been a powerful symbol, the soul of the nation, and an insurrection resulted when the British tried to take possession of it in 1900. Interesting. Gods born of woman. Gods may be given a temporary home in a special shrine consisting of a brass pan and effigies or other objects to which sacrifices can be made. This makes it possible for gods identified with particular places to be worshipped wherever a shrine can be made for them, provided, of course, that they are served by priests appointed by them or by priests familiar with their mode of worship. Various human characteristics are attributed to the gods. They have sex, some being male, some being female, and a few being both. They tend to specialize, to be more effective in some spheres than in others. There are gods of war and gods of victory. There are gods of peace and gods who are consulted about the causes of epidemics or other calamities. The Ashanti believe that a god can enter into a woman's womb and be born into the world. Usually he does not come forth in the form of a human being, but as a piece of stone, which is subsequently discovered to be a god. The gods can change their shapes, turning themselves into animals or birds when it suits them, or appearing in human form in the guise of beautiful women or people who are insane. The gods also have unlimited mobility. They can stay in and out of their shrines as they like. The fact that shrines are made for some of them in different localities suggests that their worshippers believe that the gods can be present in many places at the same time. Ashanti religious practice allows freedom of movement and freedom of worship. Every god is available for consultation by anyone who needs help, and people travel to the particular gods who can give them the kind of help they need. Seems practical. Sometimes the gods themselves direct those who come to them to other gods. Naturally, some gods become more renowned than others and attract people to their shrines from all over Ashanti and indeed from other places. Earth Spirit. As well as the gods, the Ashanti recognize the existence of nature spirits, which find a permanent or temporary home in natural objects and may be beneficial to those who recognize them and harmful to those who ignore them. They are generally not the objects of organized cults. They have no priests, no set form of worship, even though they may occasionally be the focus of rituals. The most important nature spirit recognized by the Ashanti is the spirit of the earth. This is a feminine spirit, for the earth is like a mother to humanity. Her sacred day is Thursday, which happens to be Thursday evening, this evening, 8:22 p.m. on the 12th of June, just saying. And in the old days, work on the farm was prohibited on this day. The attitude of the Ashanti to the spirit of the earth is expressed in drink offerings and in the poetry of drums. The priest of a god acknowledges the supreme being and the spirit of the earth before he starts the trance dance. In the poetry of drums, the drummer addresses the spirit of earth, saying, "Earth, while I am in life, I depend on you. When I am about to die, I depend on you. Earth that receives the body of the dead, good morning to you, earth. Good morning, great one." Apart from the earth, no planets are recognized by the Ashanti as belonging to the world of spirits. Neither the sun nor the moon appears in prayers or rituals. Before I continue, I want to show you another photograph. Ancestor worship is an important element in Ashanti religion. Funerary urn of an ancestor because the dead have supernatural powers. They can help or harm the living indeed. They are prayed to and offered food and drink. Oh, gosh, getting cold again, my goodness. It's been very cold here in Brisbane, Australia. Very cold. Although it was a lovely sunny day today. I put the birdies out for a while, about an hour and a half, just in the sunshine, just be out in fresh air, fresh air through their feathers and sunshine. I think it's important that they have that each day, actually. They don't have the freedoms that little Charlie had, though, which is a shame, but, I'd lose them if I let them free range like I did with little Charlie. But anyway, they're slowly getting used to me. Kermie's still not really keen on me, to be honest. He's quite frightened of me because, I have to catch him to put him in the small cage, to put him outside, and he hates being in the small cage, so he's not really, I'm not his favourite person. But little Bo tries to bite me constantly, but it's almost like a little game he plays now. He just really looks at me, his little face looks at me with real intentions like this. And I can tell that he kind of likes me really, but still I wouldn't leave my fingers poking through his cage and give him ample opportunity, just saying. But I can tell by the little expressions on his face, he's trying to work me out. He's getting kind of used to me. But by the gods, they've eaten a lot, those two birds, the last few days, because it's been so cold. They've just eaten and eaten and eaten and eaten, and I'm trying not to give them too much food because they're just ploughing through it like there's no tomorrow. I mean, I've got plenty of food, don't get me wrong, but I'm just frightened that I overfeed them and, that they'll have little heart attacks or something, But little Bo ate all his food this morning and looked at me like, what's happening? So I filled his bowl, back up, like about a third full, because as I say, I don't want to overfeed him. And he looked at me with real happiness and immediately went to eat, so he was hungry. And even Kermie ate nearly all his, special food that I supplied him with now. He didn't like it in the beginning, but he's starting to eat it too. And he was waiting. He let me know non-verbally, flapping about and jumping up and down on his perch in front of the container that holds the sunflower seeds. He let me know in no uncertain terms that he wanted more sunflower seeds. But they're kind of like, they're a treat. They're like giving lollies candy to a baby. You don't want to overdo it because, they're quite fattening and addictive, and he's meant to eat his other food, all his vegetables. They're not eating their vegetables at the moment, which is odd. But anyway, he demanded more sunflower seeds, and because he'd been a good boy and eaten most of the other food that he's not all that keen on, I gave him some more sunflower seeds. I sort of withheld it most of the day, but then I gave him some in the end. And oh, he was so happy. He was so happy when I gave him the sunflower seeds. So look, at least they know that I'm understanding what they're wanting, what they're trying to indicate to me in their non-verbal little birdie telepathic ways with body language. But it's sweet. We're settling in to being good friends, those two boys and I. Sweet little birdies. Right. Dangers. Oh no. Let me just finish that. Apart from the Earth, no planets are recognised by the Ashanti as belonging to the world of spirits. Neither the sun nor the moon appears in prayers or rituals. Dangers of the forest. Other nature spirits are associated with particular trees, especially those used for carving or building. These trees are not the objects of organised cults because they are not personified gods, and so are distinguished from tree gods proper. When an Ashanti wishes to cut down any of them for use, he performs a little ritual so that the spirit enshrined in it may not harm him. There is a widespread belief that many spirits inhabit the forest and that it is dangerous for anyone to venture alone into the thick forest unless he knows the law of the forest. And it is not only nature spirits that loiter there. Gods may also be met, and some of those who become priests discover their gods through being possessed while in the forest. It's been a long time since I've been to Mayala at Mount Glorious. Now I wouldn't mind going back to that lovely forest at Springbrook that Crystal took me to one time with Jared. I had the encounter with the Fae there. That was a very interesting experience. So wouldn't mind going back there. I might ask Jared maybe in springtime when the weather starts to warm up if he wants to make the trip there again. Because it was lovely anyway, and we had a picnic and a bit of a barbecue and wandered through the forest. When they are possessed elsewhere, there is a tendency for them to run into the bush, to live there in seclusion, so that they will be in constant touch with the god who has possessed them. The rites performed during festivals set aside for some gods include bringing the god from the bush in a procession to the town. The living and the dead. The position of man's soul and spirit in the universe of spirits is also of concern to the Ashanti. While on earth, man must keep his own soul pure and strong. He must also respond to the spiritual influences and powers around him because he has no power of his own to determine the course of his own life. Although he has a spirit, it does not make him a member of the world of spirits. It is when he dies that he can join the world of spirits, and in this state he shares such attributes of the gods as unlimited mobility, shape-changing, the power to show himself visibly through some human being, and the gift of invisible presence. Because the dead have supernatural powers beyond the reach of living men, it is believed that they can be of help to the living when they are reached through prayers and ritual. The Ashanti pray to the dead in much the same way as they spoke to them while they were alive. They offer them food and drink, conscious of their human past. They slaughter a sheep for them and afterwards cut it up and share it, as it were, with them. Though the Ashanti revere the dead and behave in their presence in a religious manner, they think of them not as gods, but as persons in another world, as kinsmen who are no longer visible, but who can help the living. Magical force. The Ashanti believe in the magico-religious power of witches and sorcerers, and in the protective powers of charms and amulets prepared by experts and worn on the body or hung in a room. There are amulets believed to provide protection against being shot or assaulted, charms against witchcraft and bad medicine. These provide additional security to that offered by the gods and may be prepared or prescribed by a priest for the use of a client. Closely related to the belief in magico-religious power is the belief that there is vital force inherent in some material things. This belief shows itself in the choice of ritual materials, in the selection of herbs, liquids, and substances assumed to have spiritual power. Such materials are used to harness spirits, to act as a vehicle of communication with the unseen, and to act as agents of a person's desires. Charms, amulets, or other preparations of vital force can be used to influence not only gods and spirits, but also man, to influence his mind or his heart, to weaken his body or destroy him completely. They are important bridges to the supernatural and may operate in the worship of supernatural beings, as well as in magic designed to achieve its ends without the direct intervention of a supernatural being. When they form part of the rituals of worship, they may be combined with actions and speech in ritual formulae and prayers, or music and movement. When they are exploited for magical purposes, they may be combined with spells or incantations and prescribed actions. The axe of Niami. Although there is evidence in the past of temples and priests of Niami, the Supreme Being, a distinctive organized cult of the Supreme Being has not survived. There are no set rituals for Niame, no set occasions for worship exclusive to him. The central place which he occupied in Ashanti religious thought has continued to be expressed through the symbol of Nyamedua. This is a forked branch of a tree, Alstonia congensis, named after Nyame, the Supreme Being, which is fixed outside houses to serve as an altar for him. A pot containing a Neolithic axe is placed on this altar. The axe is called Nyame Akuma, the axe of Nyame, for it is believed to come down from the heavens during thunderstorms. Offerings to the Supreme Being are placed in the pot. On all ritual occasions, focus primarily on the lesser gods. Formal prayers and libations begin with a call to the Supreme Being. Apart from this, nothing else seems to be required for bringing people in touch with him, for he can always be reached through prayers. The worship of the gods. Nature spirits similarly have no shrines or formal organized cults. Earth is mentioned in prayers and libations, but there does not appear to be a distinctive organized form of worship for the spirit of the earth. Similarly, other nature spirits become the focus of attention only when man is in need of objects with which they are associated. The rites that are performed for them are done privately. They do not call for general participation or the intensity of public worship. It is the lesser gods and the ancestors who receive the greatest attention in Ashanti religious practice, for they are worshipped at fairly regular intervals. But there is a vast difference in the forms of worship devoted to the ancestors and those set aside for the gods. The ancestors have no priests trained specially for the purpose of worship or the performance of rituals. For the ancestors are guardian spirits that may be approached by any of their kinsmen. Communication with them is established through prayers, pouring libations, offerings of food and blood sacrifice, usually of a sheep. In the case of ancestor chiefs, those who officiate on ritual occasions are the chief and his elders, the members of the tribe who are the keepers of the royal mausoleum, and a selected number of officials and servants of the court. The worship of the gods, on the other hand, requires trained priests. All those who assume this role undergo long periods of training, generally lasting not less than 3 years, during which they learn the music and dance of the gods, the particular songs of the gods they serve, the elements of drama embodied in public worship, the rites of the cult, methods of divination and healing, the use of herbs, the preparation of charms and amulets, or how to counteract their powers, and methods of dealing with the personal problems of their clients. In traditional Ashanti society, then, religion provides an important means of dealing with the day-to-day problems of living that can be attributed to spiritual causes, as well as a focal point for rallying the members of a community and strengthening their solidarity. Worship is regarded not just as an expression of faith in the unseen, but as a service which gods and spirits demand. In this connection, the traditional religion of the Ashanti shows greater concern with the lesser beings and spirits than with the Supreme Being himself, because it is believed they are both more capricious and more directly involved in everyday life. See also Cult of the Dead, written by J.H. Kwabena Nkitia. The next entry of this encyclopedia is ashes. Ashes have been used to promote fertility, to give strength, or to bring rain. Ashes of burned Bibles have been recommended for treating potato disease. I'll just read the blurb and I'll show you the photograph. Ashes, like fire which creates them, are widely believed to bring new life and strength, as among the Nuba people of the southern Sudan, whose wrestlers cover themselves with ashes for extra vigor. Ashes are the residue of fire, and just as fire is regarded in mythology and folklore as something which purifies and also regenerates or brings new life, so the same properties are associated with ashes. Some primitive peoples regard ashes as the seeds of fire, falling from it as it dies, in the same way that the seeds of plants do, and so containing the life of the fire itself. The ancient Jews sacrificed a red heifer by fire, the ashes being used to purify the unclean. The ancient Egyptians burned red-haired men, not as a just a moment. Not as a purificatory rite, but so that their ashes could be scattered on the fields to quicken the seed in the earth. So if you had red hair in Egypt, and it was the time of fertilizing the earth, it paid to move country for a while by the gods. At the root of the custom of burning living creatures in sacred fires to fertilize the soil lies the conviction that ash is the soul of fire and so brings renewal. It was long a folk custom in Europe for the ashes of the midsummer fires to be spread on the crops or fed to farm animals. In modern Germany, a flaming Easter wheel is rolled down the hillside and its ashes are then spread on the fields. Ashes have also played their part in the rites of rainmakers and in control of the weather. South American tribes, particularly the Muiscas of Colombia, throw ashes into the sky to condense the clouds and induce rain, or scatter ashes on water as a charm to produce fair weather. In Central Europe, ashes were spread on the fields to prevent hailstones, and in France, as a defence against lightning. Sometimes linked with the idea of ashes as renewers of life is the belief that when a creature has been burned, its ashes contain its qualities in concentrated form. In Luther's Martyrs hymn, the ashes of Christian martyrs are the seeds of faith. Flung to the heedless winds or on the waters cast, the martyr's ashes watched shall gathered be at last, and from that scattered dust shall spring a plenteous seed of witnesses for God. To ensure that the power of a witch was utterly extinguished, it was necessary that her body be burned and that her ashes be scattered to the winds. After the burning of Urbain Grandier at Loudun in 1634, his ashes were shovelled by the executioner towards each of the 4 points of the compass, while the mob searched among the dead embers of the pyre for charred bones, which would serve as aphrodisiacs or as cures for constipation. In New Guinea, it was believed that the qualities associated with one living creature, and then it ends abruptly at page 139, probably continues over into volume 2, but there's a few, errors with this book, so that is the end of the book. But I'm going to show you the photographs and the blurbs that go with it. Above left, Indian disciple of the god Shiva, whitened with ashes. The god was represented as a white or silver covered man, which is odd because this is clearly a woman, judging by her very lovely breasts. But anyway, she's worshipping Shiva and covered herself in ash. And this gentleman here, also covered in ashes, is a Nuba wrestler covered with ashes before fighting. And above right, Indian child during a festival of Shiva, covered in ashes believed to contain holy and curative properties. And below right. Victorious Nuba wrestlers are awarded branches which are burnt. The wrestler covers himself with the ashes before the next fight. So here we have a young man there holding in his hands, two young men holding in their hands the branches. Actually, no, three. There's three, because his branches are much shorter, the others are much longer. But no, he is definitely holding some branches there. So I stand corrected. Right, and thus concludes this wonderful, wonderful encyclopedia, Volume 1. So I'm not sure if I want to read Volume 2 and 3 to you, but if you'd like me to continue reading it, I have no way of knowing unless you leave me a little comment and say whether you enjoyed that or not, or whether it was meaningful to you. I mean, you can go and get these books out of the library somewhere. I'm sure they'd be able to order it in some libraries. And read it yourself at your own leisure. You don't need me to read to you. But it's just, I find it interesting for myself to read it to you, and sometimes get triggered with a little interesting segues and other, my own spiritual experiences. So I find it edifying for my own self, and it helps me pass the time here all alone in my little sacred space post-war cottage with my spirits and my little birdies and the fae and the angels and the ancestors that love me. But occasionally I get human visitors too. So today I had my cleaning lady Rati and the mowing man. So that was nice to see actual human people. And I'm very fond of Rati, of course. And tomorrow my friend Lynn's coming to visit me. So that shall be lovely too. Some more human interaction with a very, very long time friend. Yes, it's all quite lovely actually. Quite lovely. So anyway, on that note, I bid you adieu. Good evening. It's 8:55 p.m. now. I'm quite tired. I've had a very productive day. Cleaning, dusting, well, not really dusting, but washing everything off. And quite a big job. And but it had to be done. Has to be done. I need to discipline myself to do it more regularly. And then it probably won't feel quite so arduous, but I'm not fond of dusting. I'd much rather sit and talk to people all over the internet that I'll never see and I'll never meet, but reading delightful stories and expressing my own soul expression out into the dimensionality that is the internet, the one-dimensionality of it all. It's quite odd, really, when you think about it in the broad scheme of things. It's a bit odd, but I enjoy it, and I know some of you enjoy, coming to my channel and hearing my stories, or hearing, readings of stories that other people have written as well. And together we're on this experiential hurdy-gurdy ride through life on planet Earth together, and learning from each other and sharing knowledge and sharing ideas, and sometimes Mama T having her little rants about the injustices of our current global societies and the epoch. And well, it is what it is, people of Earth. I can only rant about it. I don't have the power to change it, unfortunately. But I did try to protect and prevent as much as I could 5 years ago, to no avail. So it's sometimes a source of deep grief for me still to this day. And anyway, on we go, people of Earth, riding through whatever comes our way in the future, together or separate, but holding hands across the multiverse. Those of you who are believers like me in the gods and the universe and the multiverse and the supreme being, and that someone, capital S, somewhere, capital S, is watching over us, and if things get really, really dangerous in the event of, say, for example, nuclear holocaust or an asteroid, will just circumvent that to the best of their superhuman abilities, and something to wonder about, ponder about, think about. But so far we've survived on this planet this long, and I don't see why the planet shall not continue to last many, many, many more eons. So just need to go with the flow and carry on each day, being kind to each other, honouring of each other, and loving the ones that want us to love them, and even at times love us back, and loving our own selves too, because that's important. And everything being a manifestation from within, so without, so finding peace and equilibrium and joy and delight and comfort and ease, satisfaction with our journey through life and our small or great accomplishments according to your own personal gnosis. And yes, just, well, as I say, living our best lives with harm to none and competition with none. So on that note, I bid you good night. And I'm grateful for those of you who have liked and subscribed and participated in this channel, which has been going since 2009 actually, but I only really got involved reading these stories to you in the last few years. So it's been quite enlightening at times, and fun and educational and soul nourishing. So blessed be from Titania's realm at Sacred Space, and I'll probably be back in the next day or a few days with some other kind of reading of some kind to present to you. Haven't decided what I'll be reading next though. So if you have any suggestions, put it in the comments section, and yeah, I'll be back. Take good care, be of good cheer.